Hello, my name is Tom Boland. I work as a lecturer in sociology in Waterford Institute of Technology. I mainly study unemployment and critique and criticism in the public sphere, but also I'm interested in humour and comedy as well. Irish comic culture is probably more widespread in as much as almost every Irish person is a comedian. You know, I mean, if you have a room of Irish people, they'll all be able to tell jokes and make sharp remarks about the news, and everybody is in part a comedian. You know, whereas I do happen to know quite a lot of English people, some of whom I've never seen laugh. You know, who've never cracked a joke, who sort of ask you midway through, you're having a good time. You know, you are joking, aren't you, or something like that, and he's like, "What? Did you not get this? Do I have to have a sign to hold up that this was a joke?" And maybe that's stereotyping that sort of, you know, but I mean, they admit this themselves. I have a friend who's a woman who says, like, "I'm sorry, I just don't get it. You have to tell me when you're joking, because sometimes I just don't know." You know, it's the democraticness of Irish comedy. You know, we're kind of all comedians. You gotta make your own fun. Irish humour certainly has a strong strain of self-depreciating humour going through it. You know, it's the Kerryman joke is in New York a Polish joke or something like that, and there's always, you know, the butt of the joke that you put down. Whereas it seems to me that Irish people are more willing than most groups or communities to make themselves sort of the butt of the joke and make themselves hilarious. And you can look at that. You know, you can look at that as a certain strength, because being able to laugh at yourself and being able to, you know, get over your sort of pride and your desired self-image is a very important kind of thing in order to cope with this very strange and uncertain world where things don't go according to plan. And yet, in another way, if you look at it historically, the nature of Irish history is such that, well, the events of Irish history are such that, you know, any sort of national Gaelic humour kind of died out along with the rest of the political order between Cromwell and the penal laws. I mean, it's just not there anymore. And so the folk humour may have continued as a certain, you know, unbroken custom, but yet we don't know all that much about it, you know, except through folk tales that sometimes, you know, are kind of, you know, a tale's lost in the telling, something is lost in translation or something along the way. The re-entry of Ireland into comedy, and very widely dispersed comedy, is via sort of the mockery of Ireland in Victorian England, as the Irish are the ape-like, the Irish are the savage, the Irish are ridiculous, the Irish are terrorists, the Irish are, you know, in all kinds of ways, you know, stage Irishness. It's like, I mean, my grandmother is from England, and she would say, "Oh, that's a bit Irish of me," and that meant that was a bit from stupid of me, you know. So, you know, or to speak not properly would be an Irishism. So this position of the Irish as being somebody to be the butt of the joke is something that was very strong in the imperial position of Ireland, which Ireland was basically the lowest rung of the British Empire within Europe at any rate. And so, you know, you can react against that and say critically that's, you know, a terrible thing in some way or another. But I think that historically speaking, what has, you know, happened, apart from, you know, righteous reaction to that, you have a way in which that has been taken on as a sort of an element within Irish humour, so that we very often mock ourselves. I was very interested during the period of the bailout and the economic crisis. We had a vast amount of political commentary and satire. There was, you know, the après match people and the Savage Eye, and all the stand-up comedians. You know, we sort of saying this is so absurd and so ridiculous. It's actually comical to an extent what's happening. And we'd get jokes about the incompetence of the politicians and about the greed of the bankers and all these kind of elements. But the sting in the tail to all of these jokes, they weren't sort of rallies to action saying, you know, we should have a revolution and get rid of these powerful people. It was like the sting in the tail of the joke was always something like, and look at all of us Irish people, that we're so passive and so accepting that we'll even put up with this. You know, whether we're gullible and delusional, or whether we're just simply spineless, or whether we're even just, you know, colluding and hoping that we'll be on the next gravy train and hoping to make a quick buck along the way. So you know, being able to laugh at yourself is maybe that's a certain sort of virtue. But when we're all sitting at home and watching political satire that's, you know, edgy and biting and avant-garde and, you know, pushing the boundaries, but yet at the end of the day we're all sitting down by ourselves saying, oh, I'm so smart, I'm not like all the other Irish people who are so easily led, I can think for myself, unlike everybody else. Well, that's kind of a remedy for simply more sitting around and feeling pleased and smug by yourself. And so when people ask, you know, where were the riots and marches and protests that were in Greece and Portugal and Spain, where were they in Ireland? Well, those were people sitting at home really saying to themselves, you know, God, Irish people have a problem. And of course these were paradoxically Irish people sitting at home saying, you know, what's wrong with people like me that they don't go out marching? But we were sort of somewhat insulated from having to take responsibility for political action by the fact that it was all kind of a joke to us as such. And you know, the consequences of that is, you know, the crisis was used by you know, other political forces rather than the ordinary people to remake Irish politics and the economy on a more English UK model of precarity, austerity, downgrading public services and all these kind of things, which I won't talk about today because we're supposed to be talking about comedy.